let's take a quick look at that board. I'll tell you what we're going to do, Dad. We're going to talk about decided on a name. So we'll on a name. We'll then have an open discussion around what we want to think about as a strategy for a logo and branding, and maybe just spend a couple of minutes talking about that in the planning stages, and we actually have that conversation live, and then task somebody to go away and think about it. We should introduce Trello, and maybe what I thought there, Mike, is that you could quickly just do a screencast of Trello board that you've set up. You can talk about the 3 lists that you've got: to do, doing, done, and exactly how we're going to use Trello just to keep our thoughts together as a team, the 3 of us as a team, to keep our conversation happening and each other accountable during the week so people can see what that is. Again, just try and keep these things, just talk through exactly what it is, screencast that, and then what I thought is you could, if you don't have to show the screen, but maybe just give your thinking and feedback about some of the topics that you've got around the business plan. Just talk about, even if you just look at your screen and read them to us, and just semi-present what you've thought about as a plan and what you've thought about as a follow-on from our meeting last week. I'm not sure how much work you've done on the business plan, but just feedback what the thinking that you've had on the business plan. And it doesn't have to be finished or polished at this stage. Just say, this is what I've been thinking, this is my demographic target audience, whatever you've got to, just feed that back to us. And then I think we should next talk about your initial launch, call it intro video to Not Rocket Science. This is the Trello card that we have on the Not Rocket Science board. And I think we should just discuss what the purpose of that video is and what the reason we're putting that video together is about, and talk about things that we want to cover in that video. And then we can also just mention going ahead and starting it. So I think that's something that we'll just talk about there. And then the last one would be, I think, as an agenda item that we would talk about, we would discuss, once you've got that intro video launched, what we think would be a good framework to putting together a content plan for Not Rocket Science. So what that means is we would sit around and discuss and say, okay, we think that we should start with the following 3 lessons or topics, or maybe our discussion is just a discussion about what we think it should be, and have that discussion live. And then the takeaway from that is that we will create call it a topics card on Trello. And during the week, all of us are responsible for putting down 3 topics that we can use as a starting point to start to create content for the Not Rocket Science audience, based on the audience that we've defined in the business plan. And I think that would probably take us through about half an hour, 40 minutes of content, where we have it structured into those things, and we can break that up for Ignite, but we'll also, again, have some takeaways that we can use for our business, not Rocket Science. And then we can have some action items and roll from there.
Okay, so yeah, I had an idea that we were going to be working on the content, and I don't know if I shared with you, I made another Trello board called Content Board.
I
made 2 Trello boards. Maybe I didn't share the other one with you guys. And okay, the idea was that that is actually a board that I've set up to manage content, where we do we list topics and then we go and research topics. Let me just share it with you quickly, if I can, before we start the recording. Just take a sec. If it's not shared with you.
While you're busy there, Mike, maybe you can just listen. I'll just give you guys some feedback on something else that I was talking to Simon about yesterday. He was also, for a completely different reason, researching the idea of outsourcing some of his video editing. He's got some projects that he wants to put together, and he sat down to do some video editing. Got a little bit frustrated with the process and did some research. And he said that he's found a couple of websites where in the Philippines you can find a full-time video editor for video editing content for about 4,000 Rand a month. And I was just thinking that, as we start to build these businesses and content becomes so critical, something like that, to share that cost between a couple of our projects that we're busy with, and have someone full-time, where you can literally have this meeting now, give it to somebody else, and the hour and a half or 2 hours of work that it takes to cut that content up, put it into our Facebook group, etc., would be a really valuable resource to have as we start to build more and more content.
I would be very open to sharing a resource like that. I'm my FB lives for Phoenix are the editing of it is the bane of my life. So I would definitely be open to looking at sharing something like that.
Cool. I'm just going to make another agenda item here. Sorry, Mike, I know you wanted to say something as well there. Just before we forget, I'm going to put an agenda item here called discuss screencasting software. Alex and I had a side chat about that offline during the week, and it's something that you're going to need to think about and invest in quite soon. Investment in some money, Mike. I think it's about $50 or something. But also the investment in time in learning an app called ScreenFlow, and we'll talk about the pros and cons of it, but it's going to be pretty integral to your business as you create content and teaching. And well, I think we should maybe have that discussion online. What do you think, Al?
I agree. And if I can also put forward another agenda item, I think we need to just have a discussion. If we're going to be looking at content, at a content plan, I think we also need to think a little bit about what are our platforms that we are actually sharing this content on. We've obviously registered a website domain, but we need to maybe start thinking about that and maybe get open up whatever platforms there are, whether they are Facebook pages or whatever.
Good idea, yeah. Okay, so
is this half-hour session now going to be about 4 hours?
Things that shouldn't take too long to put together, but you're right, El, it'll take quite quick to just quickly decide. Once you've got our logo, we can put together a not rocket science Facebook page, and maybe if we decide we're going to have a group, just get those things going. So as we start to get the content, we can start to build that stuff in there.
Yeah, okay. And that's where you can use that other tool, Gareth, that you spoke about that lets you post to various platforms from one thing. Are you still using it? Is it a recommended tool to actually move forward with?
Yeah, so it's called Content Studio. I'm using it quite a bit. It has a few limitations, and those limitations mostly come from its integration to social platforms. So, for example, they haven't got the Instagram part sorted out yet, and for example, you can't post directly to a group yet, although they believe that it's something that's going to come back online at some point. So there are some things that you can't do, but you can put together a content plan around that once you've agreed what that's going to look like. But personal Facebook pages, Twitter, LinkedIn, but not LinkedIn with video. So there's a couple of limitations there.
Okay, all right. Just on that, I just want to just check quickly. The Trello board that I shared on the content management, can you see it? Have you now got another Trello board there? I shared it with the group. No.
Just see if it's going through.
Have
you got it up?
It's called NRS Content Management.
It normally comes through as a notification in Trello. I don't have it.
Add all group members. Hang on.
But what group is it? We're not a group together.
You're Alex and add the two members.
If you add the members individually.
Oh, there we hang on. There we go.
Okay, now it's coming through.
Yeah, I think I hadn't added it properly. Sorry. Yeah, you should get it. Yeah. Okay, there it is. Is that kind of what the lists as you would see being useful?
Al, maybe you want to take a quick look and give your feedback, yeah?
You've run content. I don't know, so I was guessing.
I think that's a pretty solid flow of how to start something like this. Al, I don't know if you did say anything, but your microphone's been off for a little while.
Sorry, I wasn't even looking at the screen. I was just looking at the Trello board. I didn't realize. Having a long conversation, yeah. No, looks good. Yeah, it looks good. We can always adjust as we need to go, but
absolutely,
I think it's good as we go. Yeah.
Just a starting point, because I have never run content on a managed basis before like this. So I just put down some thoughts into a sort of a simple board, and we can change that as well. But it's kind of a left to right flow again, you know.
And I think also that we might find that different content the flow will be slightly different. So we'll just adjust accordingly.
Sure. Okay.
Let's do this, Mike. When we get to the idea of content and we talk about what our content plan is going to be, perhaps we can just also present that Trello board to talk about exactly what the structure is going to be and how we're going to use that to, well, it's exactly what we said. I actually said we should have a board for content, a card for content, but you've now got an entire board for it, which I think is a good plan. That's cool.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Just want to quickly go blow my nose. Stand by 1 second. Sorry, kids.
A good idea.
Speak amongst yourselves.
Asa, how much longer are you there staying where you are now with your sister?
So tomorrow, actually, I head out to Arizona, going to visit a friend there. So I'll be in Arizona for about 2 weeks or so and then head back.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll take it from there. I'll take it sort of just day by day.
And so you're coming back to your sister after going to Arizona?
So, I'm making sure that I'm always here when I'm going to be here for each of the nephews' birthdays. That's really important. I really want to spend the time with them. So I head back just before the little one's birthday.
Yeah.
And I'm going to probably head out again somewhere for a week or two between the two kids' birthdays and be back again just in time for Mason's birthday. And then do again between Mason's and my sister's birthday. So I've kind of just made sure I scheduled my time here that I catch everybody's birthday. But
that's fun. And how long will you be stateside then?
3 months in total. So I'm going to stay my maximum allowable time.
Yeah.
And then they're pretty much going to kick me out. Well.
Okay.
Maybe
and then you've got no plan yet of where after that?
I'm just, at the moment, everything is just sort of like vague ideas, and I'll see closer to the time what's calling me. But yeah.
Okay. It's really cool.
Maybe we have a Central American Ignite Business Builder retreat.
Yeah, I'd be open to that.
Did I lose you guys?
Not at all.
Cool. No, sorry, I had a bit of a freeze here. Okay, should we do it? What did he say we were going to start with again? Cool. Okay. All right, guys, welcome to our second meeting for our new business that Mike's setting up, that Alex and I are working together with Mike on as a business partners and as strategic consultants and coaches as we document the process for taking Mike's business idea of teaching technology to seniors from an idea over the next couple of months to a fully fledged and working business. And as we document the process, this is our second meeting where we're going to sit together and let you sit in on our meeting. And is this working? I can see frozen screen. Good. I don't know if the screen froze there. So our second meeting of working with Mike in taking his business from an idea to a fully fledged teaching business where he teaches seniors how to use technology and integrate it into their lives. So we have some action items that we put together from our first meeting that Mike, Alex, and I had. And perhaps the best place for us to start this meeting is to go and have a look at how we went in the action items that we agreed that we were going to get through from last week. So the first thing we looked at last week was we mentioned that we were going to come up with a name. One of the most important places before we can start moving with any of the other things is to come up with a name. And Al, maybe you want to just give some feedback on some of the names that you had come up with. Mention some of the potential challenges we had around some of those names, and maybe you can let everybody know their name that we've finally agreed on.
Awesome. So I came up with 3 names. So the first one that came across that I thought of was a play on the word geriatric, and I thought of geriatric. So when
that's such a cool name, by the way. I love it.
Well, yeah, it turns out not to be original. So that name, the .com wasn't available when I did the search. There's no business attached to that name. There's no business with that name. However, there's a pharmaceutical that has a product that has that name. So it's a registered trademark, which is obviously a product that is targeted at older people, and I think it's something like pacemakers or something. I'm not sure. Anyway, but the name could have been used if we maybe did a spelling variation or hyphenated it or something like that. The one comment that did come through, which I agree with, is that while it's a clever name, it's it doesn't roll off the tongue very well. It's a little, it's not an easy word to say. So that was the first name. The second one, I sort of looked at the one of the things when Gareth was explaining exactly what the business idea was. He had specifically said that the target market is actually the baby boomer generation. So I looked at the name Tech Boomer. So that is actually the name that is used by the competing business that we came across. So it's obviously not viable. It's not only that the name is used, but it is used by a competitor. So it's all we would do is we would be driving traffic to that competitor, since they have the .com name. And then the third one, which came to mind, was Not Rocket Science. And I liked it because, firstly, it's a commonly used saying, and it refers to...
Alex,
yes?
Sorry to interrupt. Is Gareth still there? He's just come back. I think we lost him for about a couple of minutes. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was recording on his side.
Yes. Gareth, we lost you for a bit, so I don't know if we lost also the recording ability or...
Sorry, guys, I got kicked out somehow. I was trying to adjust my bandwidth settings here, and I did manage to kick myself out. Can we just start again? I just don't want to have lost this section. I'll just do a quick intro one more time. I think we might still have it, but in adjusting it kicked me out, and I don't know if it's it still says that it's recording, but maybe just for the sake of getting this thing 100% right, let's just make sure we've got it again. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
If only there was a way where someone could teach us how to use this technology properly.
Maybe there's some gurus out there that know how to use it properly. We could all go on a course.
Damn it. I'd pay for that. All right. Hopefully the first part's the introduction will probably still be there. Also, maybe just go ahead and just start again on the ideas that you had around names and some of the challenges that you came up against with some of the names that we had.
Okay. So there were 3 names that were proposed. The first one was a play on the word geriatric, and so it was Geriatech. So when I went to search to see if the name was used already, the .com was used, and it's actually a registered trademark that's used by a pharmaceutical for technological products that get made for the elderly. So probably not ideal to use as a business name, but if we chose to use that, we could just do a spelling variation or put a hyphen in or something like that. What the feedback that did come from that was that although it's clever, the word doesn't roll off the tongue very well. So it would be a little bit of an awkward word to use. The second name was based on when Gareth was explaining the Mike's business idea to me. He said that the target market would basically be the baby boomers. So from that, I thought Tech Boomers might be a good name. But obviously on researching that name, that was how I came across the competing business that had a similar idea. They're called Tech Boomers, and they have the .com domain. So we can't really use that. And if we did, we would just send traffic to a competitor. That just wouldn't make any sense at all. And then the third name was Not Rocket Science. And the advantage of that name is, firstly, it's a commonly used term that refers to the ease of using something. And I think that it brings across that what we're teaching can actually be really simple, no matter what age you are. And then also, rocket science is in itself a techie thing. So it also plays well with this. When we did the search on the names, the .com is used. However, there's no website attached to that .com, and I couldn't find any businesses which used that name. So we decided to go with, initially the decision was to go with the .tech suffix, but I think we settled in the end with the .technology suffix. But either way, having tech or technology plays also well with exactly what the business is about. So that was what we decided in the end was going to be the business, not rocket science.
Not rocket science, .technology. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so what I think we'll do is during this week, we will purchase that domain name, and we'll document that process and screencast that so people can see how exactly to buy a domain name. But we've essentially decided on the name of Not Rocket Science .technology as our storefront for this business. And yeah, I think all of us are feeling pretty stoked about that name. Mike, you happy with that, eh?
Very much so. Yeah, it sounds a great name, and I love the backdrop that's been put behind our control board, which we'll talk to just now. Don't know who did that. Well done.
Mike, maybe you also want to just touch on the ideas. Maybe we should have it as a three-way discussion, the ideas of how we want our logo to look, because the next thing we need to decide is, now that we've got a name, the next logical step is to talk about logo creation and what we're going to do with regards to a brand. And we can have some, maybe a quick discussion around how we design logos and what elements we need in our logo, and then talk about the process that we use and adopt to go about briefing somebody to design a logo for us, and what sort of platforms we use. And maybe, I don't know if you want to talk about some ideas. I haven't, to be honest, guys. Just, this is really a live discussion. This is not something we've discussed even offline before this meeting. The three of us need to decide what we want this logo to look like. So Not Rocket Science, in my mind, has a picture of a rocket, I think. But that's really all I've thought about, and maybe the words Not Rocket Science or something like that. El, have you got any thoughts? Mike, have you got any thoughts around what you think our logo would look like, a finished product?
Yeah, I'd like to just throw in they're really random ideas, and I don't have an idea of a logo. I would like it to be sort of a little bit fun and humorous. So I like the idea of a rocket, maybe with an older senior person riding it as an astronaut, but learning. I don't know how that comes into it, something like that. And I would like, when we get to things like podcasts and that we have a byline that endorses that you can start and end your podcasts and maybe your video things with. That is, we can come up with something, and maybe even a jingle. And I don't know whether we can use existing stuff, but like there is the stuff by David Bowie, Starman, or something to do with rockets and that sort of thing that comes from the era of the baby boomers. That music goes back a bit, but if you could find something to back up the logo, so that when we come to develop audio and visual content, we can use that as a start and end, and it becomes like a jingle for the content.
I love it. I love it a lot. I hadn't actually made the link between how big the Star craze was and David Bowie and the time that it was baby boomer, but that's pretty hot. Very cool.
Yeah, I like that. And I mean, there's quite a lot of stuff in that time which kind of plays around that. The first moon landing, all that stuff was there. Yeah. So
awesome. It's really cool.
There's a lot of stuff we can play with there.
And there's also that what's it called? A2D2, those guys that were like with the box stuff. R2D2, that's right. Yeah. Okay, was in our era as well. So, you know, if you could make something fun like that could be an older person with the theme of a rocket, and they reinventing themselves and they're taking off at another stage in their lives, something along those lines. I don't know how we would create it.
I think that's very cool. Very cool.
Maybe you want to talk about how we would take this as a brief and just discuss. So I think essentially what would happen here is, as Alex and I have done this before, Mike, you can be involved in the process, but in terms of engaging with an outsourced virtual graphic designer, maybe you want to just talk about that process. And I would hope that of the three of us, this would be something that you would do. As we've worked together, Alex and I sort of have a default setting for certain work, and this creative stuff and making things look pretty always ends up being Alex's work, because I feel she's got more skill than me in those areas.
I'm too pragmatic, and everything's sort of left brain in my world. So I think I'll quite happily abdicate that responsibility to somebody else.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's, I'll be more than happy to run with that task. So there's really two ways, maybe three ways that one can approach this. The simplest way, and the one that doesn't rely on any kind of or very little creative ideas, to basically take what you've just said now, Mike, in terms of as a general branding idea and what we want the look and feel to be, put it into a brief. The brief, and I think we'll probably share it, what an example brief or what our final brief looks like. We'll probably share it somewhere on the site, where the brief gives a clear outline of things like that we wanted to be humorous, that we wanted to show an older person, etc. What are the elements we wanted there? We might want to give also an indication of the colors that we want. So we might want to have a quick discussion between the three of us now of key colors that we think should be in there if we feel that's important. And then maybe give a few example images for the designer to have an idea of the style or elements that we like, etc. And then we send the brief through. Normally, Gareth has already got one or two contacts that he's used in the past. So we might use that or look for somebody new. In fact, we may do that so that I can actually show how we look for a person. And we would do that either on a site like Fiverr or Upwork or something like that to get somebody. And then I'll show also how we negotiate and settle on a price and give them the brief, and then they will come up with ideas, which we can back and forth a little bit with them till we settle on something. Obviously, if a person is a bit more creative and they're able to do it themselves, then there are means to be able to do that. So, yeah, but I don't think that that's necessarily the route we'll take.
So, yeah, I think there's a couple of things that we can do. I think the discussion of colors is one that we should have now quickly and just put those out there. Again, not something that I've given too much thought to, but I think it's a good thing to speak about. Maybe you just want to quickly just give the background of what Upwork and Fiverr is in one sentence, just so that anybody that hasn't heard of this can get an understanding of what those platforms are and how we use them to do specific work.
Okay, perfect. So these are two sites which allow you to hire people on basically virtually any task that's of a virtual nature. And Fiverr is called Fiverr because the starting price is $5. And then it moves up depending on how complicated the task is. But you could actually hire someone to do a $5 logo for you. We probably would not go that route. That's probably too simple, but I'll discuss that in more detail when we actually show how it's done. Upwork has the reputation for being probably a better site with better quality people, but you're going to pay a bit more. So, but those are the two main ones. There are other sites as well, but those are the two main ones and the most used sites for this kind of thing.
Very cool. Yeah, we use them quite a bit, like as a matchmaking platform to outsource work, and it can be things like logo design. It can be things like copywriting, voiceover. You can find people to help with video editing. There's lots of different applications for outsourcing tasks onto these platforms, and we use it quite a bit. So I think that's an interesting place to start. I think the other thing that I thought about, El, when you were talking about designing a logo, what we could also do is come up with our 3 logos, and we could actually put them to our community, to the Not Rocket Science community, and have everybody get involved and say what they think about the logos and which one, get people's feedback and include people to be part of this process with us.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think that would be quite cool. And we may get some lovely feedback that we don't have ourselves.
Brilliant. Yeah. So maybe we could just have a quick 3-way conversation about color. Any ideas on what we want the logo to look like? Any ideas around color? Straight off the top of my head, I don't know why, like red, white, and blue came into my head, but I don't.
I was just going to say exactly the same thing.
Really? Yes. Wow.
Okay. Well, that's cool, because I had no ideas except to apply our minds to colors that work on the different mediums that we're going to be communicating them in. So you want colors and font type and color that works in video and works on a website and works on maybe documents that we're going to be putting out in the learning frames, because there needs to be a level of continuity. So the colors that we choose need to be able to work across all those different mediums.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, let's start with that, Al. I think we can, if the designs come back and we're not happy with the colors, we can change them as we go. But let's start with that again. I think we need to reiterate again the name of your business that you choose and the type of logo that you have. A superficial thing. I think some business owners get too hung up on spending too much time coming up with the perfect name or the perfect logo. Like, find something that works, have a discussion, but don't spend months coming up with a name that is going to be absolutely perfect. What's more important is that you focus on your product and understanding, engaging your audience around something that's good, but don't spend too much time on it.
Just as a quick, just to get a confirmation between the three of us, if we go with red, white, and blue, generally you'll have a main color and then the others would be accent colors. Just my gut feeling is that maybe blue is the main color and we use the white and red as accents. Are you two happy with that, if that's the brief?
Yes, I think so, El, because also if in places you might want to use white text on the red or the blue and it would show up, you can't do it that easily the other way around, depending on what it is. I think there's more emphasis if you do it that way.
Yes.
But I'm not the professional, but I think it would work better.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. So we're also going to make that your task for next week, Al, and we'll update it on the Trello board, which flows directly into our next element. We spoke last week about an application called Trello, which is a web-based task management application that we use for quite a few tasks and planning. It's a collaborative tool based on the internet that you can use to plan just about anything, from an event or a wedding to a business to a holiday, anything that you want. It's a free tool for the most part. It has an upgrade if you want to do some very complicated stuff, but for most users, the application is 100% free. Mike put together a Trello board last week called Not Rocket Science. And the purpose of that board is to keep our thinking and plans and actions together in one place. And Mike, maybe you can do a screencast of the Trello board that we have and just talk through some of the stuff that you've put on that board to start with, to give the people watching this an indication of how we're using Trello to work our plan together and keep it all in one place. Your microphone's still off there, Mike.
If I share the Trello board like that, can you see it on the screencast, Gareth?
You would need to add share screen. So on the left-hand side of this Google Hangout, there should be a green.
Yeah, I got it. Hang on a second. Cool. I just want to see, can you see that now?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so as Gareth mentioned, Trello is a very simple online tool, collaborative tool that you can share with whoever you choose, and it's based on what's called the Kanban system, which is really like sticky notes that one used to use on a whiteboard that you can move around. And fundamentally, you name a board, and then within the board, you create lists starting from left to right, and they normally are tasks, and the basics are to do, and then doing, and when a task is complete. And you can add additional lists as you see fit. The to do is you add a task as a card, and a card has the main topic of the card on the front of it. And when you click on it, it's like flipping a piece of paper over, and on the back, you can write notes, expand more about the topic. You can attach files to that card. You can share it with people. You can be notified when that person updates the card. You can put a due date on the card. You can put colors on it. You can assign it to people to do by a certain time. And then as they start working on it, they move it to doing, and people can continue to work on that card until that particular task is completed, in which case it then moves to done, and you can mark it then as a done task. In that way, you can use it to run projects, whether they be of a business nature or personal nature. And for the last couple of years, I've been using it extensively in all facets of my life and found it very useful. And as such, have used it to both in business and in personal. And we see it as a useful platform because of its ease of use and its flexibility. I think the important thing with Trello, because it's so flexible, there are a few best practices, and it's very easy to make the boards too complicated because they are so flexible. And I think by and large, one wants to keep it as simple as possible so that everybody can see what everyone else is doing without shipping mails backwards and forwards and making it complicated. So in essence, that's the role of Trello. And we will use it as this project evolves and change it as needed to control the various facets of getting this business up and running.
Brilliant, Mark. What I think is something we could do now, if you can just stay on that board, go back to where you were there. I'd like to just quickly jump ahead in our agenda. And the reason I want to jump ahead is because you've got the Trello board here, and I'd like to just show everyone watching how we've used a specific card this week to talk about something called an initial intro video. What we're going to do as a launching strategy for Mike's business is we're going to have Mike talking and creating a video, an introductory video that we're going to share onto our social networks and various platforms, introducing what Not Rocket Science is about and talk about his journey that he's about to undertake. And Mike, maybe you can just quickly show that card and show the conversation we had on the back of it just briefly. So this was a card that we were going to action this week. And, we put a description down there which spoke about exactly what the video should entail, what the purpose of it was. And then a conversation started. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see I initially commented and spoke to Alex and spoke about what it was about. I tagged Mike in it, and then Alex came back and spoke about something else. And the conversation happened on the back of that card as we agreed things that we wanted to do around this particular topic, which was the development of Mike's initial intro video. So maybe while we're here, we could just quickly talk about that this week for this particular action item.
Okay, would you like me to elaborate on this card then, Gareth?
No, I think it's fine. I just wanted to show you the back of a card, and see, just while we're talking about Trello, you can maybe just talk about some of the things on the right-hand side there, some of the things on the back of a card. Go for it, yeah.
Yes, okay. So on this card, as Gareth has just elaborated, and just to endorse what he said, you can see that on this board, we have board members, and it's the three of us running this project, if you can see on the right-hand side here, and you can assign a particular task to a person. So if I was to assign this task to myself, you'll see that up on the top left, I become the person that's responsible for this, the total responsible for this card. But if Alex had a joint responsibility with me and I was to add her, she and I would become members of this card. Then as we update those things, you can be notified by changes on the fly, or you can set up summaries. You can add labels to the cards, and these labels are different colors, so they might assign to different phases. You can call them whatever you want to. They can be the web, you can label website green, and you can label content yellow, or whatever it was that you wanted to do on the cards. You can set due dates. It brings up a calendar, and it will alert you when you're getting close to that due date for that particular task. You can move cards between lists on the Trello board. You can make a copy of the card. If you subscribe to a card, you particularly watch that card, it'll notify you on the fly. Anytime someone makes a change, it'll immediately notify you. If you don't subscribe to it, you can go into the card and see all the changes, which are, when anyone writes a comment, as you will notice over here, they're automatically date and time stamped. And you will see right now that I added Alex to the card a minute ago, and I joined that card. I added myself to that card. And you can see the previous comments below that Gareth alluded to. And when you're finished with that card after it's been and done, and you you can archive that card so that it declutters the board. But at any stage, if you search for a card by any portion of name on that card up at the top, it will pull it back and it will tell you whether it's archived and whether you want to bring it out of the archive, or whether you just want to look at it and leave it in archive. So I think at a very basic level, that gives you some of the things that you can do with a card, and it makes it, again, as I say, a very useful tool.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. Maybe just stop that presentation of your screen there.
Okay, let me just stop it
Okay, so the next item that we want to discuss on, which was an action item from last week, was our business plan. Mike was tasked with going away and coming up with a business plan, and it was something that he was going to apply his mind to in terms of coming up with an overriding strategy for this business, so that we had a starting place of how we were going to, first of all, identify our customer, identify that customer need, and ourselves as a supplier that understood what that need was and a way to be able to service it. So a week is probably not a long enough time to think about a business plan, and it's probably something that we're going to go back to a few times and continue to realign and refocus in terms of an overall strategy. But maybe, Mike, you want to just talk about the work you did this week around coming up with a business plan and some of the ideas that you had around the business plan. We can share the actual business plan that you've got in our Ignite Facebook group at a later stage to show you the actual workings of what you got, but maybe just at a high level, what you've done this week around a business plan and your thinking that you've applied.
Sure. So what I've put together is really just a base framework. And as we've said before, having started many businesses, both at corporate and at entrepreneurial level, I think that sometimes in getting a business off the ground, people can spend too much time in going into a lot of detail. And whilst the business plan is important, the act of the plan and thinking it through is actually often more important and more beneficial than the actual documentation of it. So once the plan is there and you've got an idea of where you want to go, the action and execution of it, to me, is far more important than the actual plan itself. But the planning, I think, is vital. In that regard, I've looked at this venture as taking an online learning model to a market of people that is kind of in my age group. And it's designed to assist the baby boomers and other senior citizens to learn to make their lives easier and more fun by using everyday technology that they probably already own. The idea behind it was to provide learning programs and a resource sharing platform for senior citizens to better utilize their computers, smartphones, and tablets. And I believe that being a person of that age and having worked in technology, in the technology industry all my life, I've been able to keep up with the changes, and I believe I'm well positioned to impart that knowledge to people of a similar age who understands how this market thinks and feels and is often afraid of the technology that surrounds them. So they tend to back away when it could be an ally to them. My target market is males and females over the age of 55 or 55 and up. They're probably empty nesters, their children having left and moved out of the house, and they have an appetite to learn something new at their pace and to help them go through a change in their lifestyle. They are semi-techno literate but can't keep up with the pace that the younger people want to teach them at. So my goal in this venture is to have 500 people contributing on average around about 500 Rand, and we need to maybe convert that to dollars, to gain a lifestyle enhanced through the use of technology. I then asked myself the question, how will your business idea help the people? My business idea will help my customers to gain confidence in the use of technology to enhance the way that they live their daily lives, to be able to use technology to assist them in various focus areas. And I've listed a lot, and it's amazing as I've started to apply my mind to it, the different areas. And I won't go into all of them, but to simplify their travel arrangements, to be able to measure and track their health profile and keep their records, to better communicate with their families wherever they may live in the world, to communicate and join social groups to make new friends and learn new skills in their community, to join and use social community groups to improve their safety both at home and whilst traveling, to better utilize their smartphones, to learn and be entertained by being able to read books, magazines, and that type of material on their devices, learn to listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos on interesting topics like TED Talks and things like that, and to be able to keep track of their daily spending and do their banking online and store information and documents in the cloud to keep it safe, but have access to it at any stage. The list goes on. So I think that content that one can share with people is going to be dictated by the market as they give feedback, and I plan to learn from them what they would like to learn about. How will I charge for these services? I believe I need to build an audience that has trust in what I'm offering. And to do that, I would encourage them to become part of a community that has useful free information that when they register on my platform. And then members will pay to join a learning site, and where they'll have access to more advanced content they can learn at their own pace, and there will be different levels. And off the recording, guys, that's similar to what you've got with your Ignite program, where there will be different levels of content, but I haven't structured those yet. I want to spend some more time on doing that. As I said, the payment will be on a subscription level at different levels based on what their contribution is. And additional revenue streams I see potentially into the future are affiliate income by referring certain products and that they buy as a result of the training that I give. And also maybe later on write a book from the content that is generated through the training that we do over the duration of this program. And that, guys, is about as far as I've got so far.
That's perfect. I think that's cool. Oh, what do you think? What's your feedback?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's been well thought. You've thought carefully about your audience and what their needs are. Yeah, it's good.
Awesome. Well, yeah, Mike, I think it's nice. I think I've got two things that I want to add. One of them is essentially the way that we have changed the way I've thought about putting together a business plan. And that I only really picked it up now when you've gone through it, Mark. And what I'd like to reiterate is I initially started out businesses and ideas with this idea of coming up with pricing and strategy and how we're going to charge and make money for it. And I'm starting to feel more and more that is something that we will develop as we go. I feel that the first step for any business is rather focus on, I know we have it in the business plan, and I think it's something to think about as an end game, but I think how we charge for people and what we charge will really come out of us starting to understand our customer and understanding what our product is, rather than saying up front we're going to be a subscription based or whatever it is. And I think it is good to think about, but I think what is more important is this idea of really understanding who our customer is, serving them like you're talking about, building that community as a way to build trust, and then let them tell you what they want to buy from us, almost that sort of an approach as opposed to the other way around. So I also do see it as a subscription service, potentially with differing levels of value depending on where the client wants to engage with us. But I think this is more for other people watching. Like, I think the approach shouldn't be, right, we're going to charge $199 a month for this, and it'll include this on day one. It's hard to know whether that's the right way to approach it. I feel that the right way to approach is rather to understand your customer and start serving them first, and just build an audience of people that trust you, and then start to work on your costing as a secondary function once that happens. The second thing I want to talk about is a business model that works on something called network effect. And when you start to think of business models and you think about strategy and planning, some of the most effective businesses in the world by default have network effect built into them. And what I mean by this is that when the fax machine came out and it was a piece of technology, if Mike had a piece of paper that he wanted to send to me and he had a fax machine, by default, I had to have a fax machine as well for us to play together. And as a function, whenever this technology started, you needed to, and I wanted to now send a fax to Alex. I'll say, listen, I can fax this to you, but you need a fax machine. By default of the fact that the business of fax machines became the meeting place for us to engage with one another, those technologies and those businesses grew very, very quickly. And you can see it more with modern products as well now. So online applications like Slack connect people together around their platform, initially for free, and then as your business starts to grow, you pay for it at a later stage. But if we can think of our businesses and projects that we get involved in, not as engaging necessarily with mic to customer number 2, mic to customer number 3, but create a space where by default people that want to play in this space join a community, and in order to play they need our platform. You start to add a huge amount of value and scale, because when Mike's friend says, oh, you must hear about this cool course that I'm doing, by default they have to join the platform, and it's quite a good approach to take as a way to be able to scale your business. So it's just a topic that I've been thinking about quite a bit, and I've seen quite a bit different business models. And again, it's probably too early to know exactly what that would look like. And maybe it's not something we can do for this business, but it's perhaps something to think about. And maybe if it doesn't work for this business, not rocket science, maybe somebody else that's watching this is thinking about scaling their business. And if you can create a platform where people have to meet at your platform, you can create scale pretty quickly here. Alrighty, I'm going to have a quick look at the next topic of conversation, which was the intro video. We've spoken a little bit about this on the Trello card. We are taking that as an action item from today's meeting. Al, maybe you just want to just quickly talk about what the purpose of that video is, what Mike needs to cover, and why we're going to do it as a strategy and an action item to move forward.
So the intro video really serves firstly to introduce Mike and to give it a little bit of context as well into what he's doing, why he's doing, why the business. Yeah, and to basically give context to the audience of everything that's going to follow. Yeah, in a nutshell.
And ideas for social platforms, Al, in terms of where you think this should be going to?
Well, Facebook, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think also we need to consider the audience. So the audience is more likely a Facebook audience than the other social media. So that is clear. And then I think we need to just have a discussion on the other social medias, take them one by one and decide whether it would be relevant or not to the audience. I mean, from the top of my head, I'm not sure that Instagram would be.
No, I don't think so either. What I actually thought as an approach would be a slightly more tactical approach where we get Mike to film that video and we put it, for example, onto YouTube. So we have a link for that video. We can share that video directly onto Facebook. But what we could also do, Mike, is have maybe an email blast that you can send to people that you know who could be in your target audience that just says something like, hey, hope you're well. I'm starting on a new project. Check my intro video to see what I'm doing. And on the back of that, I think before we launch this video, it's something we spoke about in our last meeting. We should have some sort of call to action for somebody to be able to follow Mike if they are interested. So there's one, it's obviously a good idea to send this video out. But what are we going to get the person that is interested to do? I mean, are they going to sign up to a newsletter? Are they going to join a group or a community? Or they're just going to reply yes or something? I think a call to action is pretty important. Yeah. What are your thoughts around that?
I think one thing that we need to consider is, and again, this is why it's so important to understand the audience and where they're at. Contrary to, like, for example, what we might be doing with Ignite, where we are using a lot of very new technology, like we use bots, etc., like that, that may not speak to the audience that we want to in Mike's business. So,
100%.
So from a campaign point of view, we'd probably take email over bots, just simply because they are more likely to be fluent in that already. And so, so maybe either a call to action where they are subscribing to an email campaign, or a call to action where they're going into a group of some kind, as my thinking off the top of my head.
Yeah. What do you think, Mike? Any ideas?
Yeah, certainly I think in the market that we're addressing, they're normally all pretty familiar with email, particularly if they've come out of a working environment. So we may need to build a mail list of existing people that I know and get referrals from them. and I did mention in the target market that it was semi people that would be my target audience, and certainly Facebook. Most of people in my age group have heard of Facebook, and their children or grandchildren have set them up. Even if they don't actively use it, they follow what's going on Facebook, even if it's initially only to follow their family, and slowly they learn a little bit. So I think Facebook and mail, to me, are two definite mediums.
I think if I can add to that, I'm stand corrected, but I think I read the other day that the fastest growing sector on Facebook is the baby boomer market.
That sounds right. That's cool.
Absolutely. I've heard that, in fact, a lot of the younger generation are actually moving off Facebook, and they're using Snapchat and other chat groups, maybe Twitter or whatever it is that they're using, and moving away from Facebook.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do this as an action item. We're going to talk about that intro video, Mike, but perhaps what we should do, our Trello card, between now and our next meeting, we should think about and decide amongst ourselves on a call to action of where anybody that's interested can meet or follow us in this journey for getting Mike's thing kicked off. Everyone cool with that?
Alex, if I could just to kind of make sure that I understand what you're looking for if I transcript it this week. You're saying it needs to cover the topic of why I chose this business, correct?
Yeah.
And then why people should join it?
Yeah, what you're offering, yes. Okay. And I wonder if in this, and this is where Gareth will help probably more, is do we need to consider structuring that intro in line with the hero journey?
Hallelujah. Yes, please do the hero's journey. Please.
Actually, I'd like to say, Gareth, do you want to share with Mike what you shared yesterday with me when you did the Ignite Hero journey? I think it was fantastic, and I think you almost maybe in your business plan, Mike, is to, when you do the audience part, is to use a similar structure to what, I mean, Gareth has used it on a website that specifically lays it out, but I thought it was brilliantly broken down what the user experience would be. And I mean, and that journey actually governs the entire user experience.
Cool. Okay. So what we spoke about briefly in the last meeting was this idea of using a defined narrative called the hero's journey as a structure to be able to tell a story which engages an audience and builds trust, and uses this format of storytelling to be able to engage with a specific audience. So perhaps what we'll do here is, it wasn't planning to be part of this meeting, but we'll share a resource called mystorybrand.com. And I will quickly talk about how you can use this format for the hero's journey to be able to develop a plan to engage with your audience and understand exactly how you're going to be targeting them. So if I do a screen share here. All right. So can you guys see my screen there? Good, cool. Okay, so initially what you do is you introduce a character. So anybody that's watching this is going to hopefully resonate with exactly what we're doing in the Ignite sequence, but essentially what it is, and this is how it goes. So the character, what do they want? I'd like to start a business on the internet. Having an online business would be a great way to supplement my income. And if it takes off, I could even quit my job. An online business that makes the same or even less than my job now would mean more free time for me to do the things that I would really like to do in my life. So that's the introduction of the character. And when you follow this format, you start to define exactly what this character wants. The next thing in the story of the hero's journey is that this character has a problem, and it's broken up into 4 parts. The first is the villain, which says, building a website is confusing. I don't have their technical ability, and what would I even sell? An external problem for them would be, there's so many people out there and courses offering the chance to make money online. Who do I trust, and where would I even start? Then they have an internal problem. it feels overwhelming and it feels like there's just too much information out there and I'm worried about failing. They potentially have a philosophical problem as well. And in the case of someone wanting to start a business on the internet, that is, if I take a risk and lose a lot of money, it could negatively impact my family. Now you introduce a guide, and the guide is essentially the product or service with which the character of the hero's journey gets shown a potential solution. So first, the guide positions themselves from a position of empathy. And this is important so that the customer understands that you get it. I understand what you're feeling, and I'm going to show you how to solve your problem. So the empathy part is, we've been there. Why don't you sell an information product? Yes, that means teaching something on the internet. Everybody has something that they can teach. The guide then positions themselves as an authority on the topic that they're going to service this client with. And that, in this case, says, we've spent years testing, trying, and mastering how people teach on the internet. We've made the mistakes and found the best ways to develop an online course, as well as how to create your lessons, how to build a simple website, and how to find clients by positioning yourself as an expert. So the guide has now been introduced to the story. The guide then gives them a plan, which is broken up into either a process plan or an agreement plan, or both. So for the purposes of Ignite, the process plan says that the road between your idea and your first customer may seem long, but we break down every single step in our free Facebook community to show you exactly how to take your idea and work along with us to build out your entire online course and eventually your website and marketing plan. We then move to the next step, which is the agreement. And that says how to come up with an idea, how to validate your idea, how to start building an audience, how to develop and display your content, and how to get paid. We'll walk you through each and every step as we do this in real time, as we build a real business and document exactly what we're doing. All you have to do is follow along. Stuck along the way, just ask your questions in our Facebook group and we'll give you a hand. So here we've basically taken the customer, we've introduced them, we've outlined the problem, we've understood their problem, and we've started to give them a plan. The next thing is you take this person to give them a call to action. Quite simply for Ignite, if you fit these criteria and you're concerned about these things, join our free Facebook community and follow us as we build an online teaching business. That ends in success. So this is the last part of the process. A risk-free, safe way to build an online business. The client will be led through all the steps that they need to develop an online teaching business of their own and helps them avoid failure before making expensive mistakes or trying products and services that might not be right for them. They get to ask questions in our free Facebook community. And the last part is the character transformation. So he's gone from this person of being frustrated and overwhelmed to this clear, relaxed, calm, and excited character that understands everything that they need in terms of how they're going to take their online teaching business. And so that's basically the hero's journey of the Ignite business and how we're going to be taking our customer from this idea of like, I'd like to start a business, but I don't know how to get there, through each of those steps in the hero's journey. And once you've spent the time documenting that, almost everything else falls into line by default as a function of the fact is you know who your customer is. You know what keeps them awake at night. When you decide to start writing text for your website and your email notifications and things like that, you know exactly the type of feelings and anxiety that your customer has, and you can position yourself as the guide and position your product from a position of empathy in order to be able to service your customer a little bit more. So I think this is something really new that we've come up with, that we've found and started to work on and apply for the projects that we're involved in. And obviously the one that we've just been through here is for all of our Ignite clients. But I think, Mike, it would be a great exercise for you to go through and just go through the hero's journey as a plan to be able to outline who your customer is, what they want, and using not rocket science as the guide that gets them from point A to point B.
Seems good. Yeah, I've got a diary note to actually download that audio book, which I haven't got to yet this last week, but will do. Sure. But if I go to that site, will it give me the template of the steps in the hero's journey?
Yeah, we'll share the mystorybrand.com link in here. You can register for free. We'll also share the resources of how to get the book and the audio book, as well as you can use the Blinkist, which is a 16-minute version if you want to do the light version, just to get the framework of the idea. But essentially, it works along that same principle.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the last couple of sections for this meeting. We want to talk about screencasting software. You guys may have seen various YouTube tutorials along the way where people have been able to show you what they're working on their computer in real time. Sometimes if you want to learn how to do something in Microsoft Word, you might search for it in YouTube and someone will show you themselves in the top corner and you'll show them your screen, and some people can even show you like how they're doing things on their iPad or their iPhone. And we want to talk about that technology because it's going to be important, very important for Mike's business. And Alex and I had this conversation earlier this week just to discuss those different applications. So I'll just give a bit of background. I'm working on a Mac, Mike's working on a Mac, and Alex is working on a Windows machine. Everybody has their faults. And there's various applications that run on different platforms. So maybe Elle can talk about a couple of different technologies she has been investigating and talk about some of the pros and cons of those applications. I'm going to mention one product called ScreenFlow. If anybody's using a Mac, ScreenFlow is an application that runs on your Mac, and it allows you to be able to record your screen as well as yourself and your audio from various different devices. So you're in a position where you're able to, let's say, for example, Mike is talking about teaching somebody how to do something in Microsoft Word. He would open ScreenFlow, the application, and he would say, right, I want to present myself talking using my Mac front-facing camera, the same camera all of us are using now. And then I also want to be able to record my screen and my audio from my microphone. So there's 3 different sources coming into one platform so that Mike can create one video documenting exactly what he's doing. And you can start to understand the power of this as you start to teach things on the internet, specifically if you've got an online technology or some sort of product that you want to teach online. It becomes an integral tool to use. So Mike, I think this week, one of the tasks you should do would be to download ScreenFlow. I'll share a link with you. We've got an affiliate link that you can use to load ScreenFlow. And it would probably also be a good place for you to start to be able to record your introductory video, because video recording, we're going to spend quite a lot of time on this, I guess, Elle, in our course in terms of the development of content. But really, the best camera that you have is the one that you have with you at the moment. And it really doesn't matter if you're recording from your phone or if you're recording from your iPad or if you've got a fancy smart camera set up on a tripod or you're just using your front-facing camera on your Mac. As long as you adhere to a couple of important rules. One of them is that audio is very, very important. The quality of your audio is really important. There's nothing worse than seeing someone and you can't quite hear what they're saying, or it's, you know, the background noise is too loud or whatever. So audio is important, and we'll spend time talking about how to get good quality audio. But if anybody's got a Mac, we suggest ScreenFlow as a recording software. Mike, you can start with it this week, and we can sit together and have a quick one-on-one of how to use ScreenFlow, and you can use ScreenFlow to record your intro video this week. And then from there, we can publish to YouTube, and we can even screencast that to show people how to use it. So I think that'll be the starter for this week. ScreenFlow is the application for Mac. Alex, you can talk about a couple of applications that you checked this week and talk about their benefits and how you tested those.
Okay, so the 2 others that I looked at, one of them I kind of looked at a few months back, which is a application called Screencast-O-Matic. The pros about using that is that firstly, if you only want to record your screen, you can do that for free. So that's a good advantage. The second thing is that it works across Windows, Mac, and Chromebook. So that's cool.
Nice.
Downside is it doesn't work across devices, so you can't use it for phone or tablets. So you need to consider carefully what are your needs for your business. If you don't need other devices, that can be a very good option. And it was definitely the cheapest out of the 3 options considered, considerably, by quite a huge margin. It was one of the cheapest. So if you're not going to need to record off your tablet or your phone, that may be one of the better options to choose. The other option, which Gareth actually pointed me in that direction, was to look at a product called Camtasia. So that's very similar to ScreenFlow. It works on both Windows and Mac, and it works across devices. So you can record off a tablet or a phone as well. It's the most expensive of the three, but it's not hugely more expensive than ScreenFlow, but it's a few dollars.
How much was ScreenFlow, Al? Do you remember?
I think it was $219 for the year.
Okay.
And Camtasia, I think, is $240. So it's about $20 over. So yeah. Cool.
I guess the discussion on these things is really just around what a person's requirement is. If you don't need to screencast from your tablet or your iPhone, or you're just presenting content from your screen and yourself, something like Screencast-O-Matic is probably a very good place to start.
Yeah. Yes. So, and again, I suppose this is a rule of thumb for any software that you're looking at. I think you have to have a clear understanding of exactly what your needs are and look at what is the potential future needs as your business grows. You're usually going to purchase software for a year at a time, so you don't really have to look beyond that year, but over the time of a year, what are the potential needs? And then from there, you can take what is the best option for you when you are looking at them.
Mike, you can jump in here and give us your input, but I'll just quickly say that as an aside, I think specifically because this is going to be a learning curve as well for you, I feel that your future product specifically for the market that you go in as a teach technology, you will need something that would allow you to screencast a phone device as well, because I believe in the future, if you want to show how to use Pinterest and you want to demonstrate to your users and your audience how to use Pinterest on the phone, Screencast-O-Matic is not going to work in that space. So I think ScreenFlow is going to probably be the right place for you to start.
Mm-hmm. And what did you say that ScreenFlow costs? About $200, is it?
I think $220 or something, Al.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so we've touched on that.
Can I add one more thing?
Go ahead, Al.
Another factor to consider when you are choosing software for a business is also in how many businesses it might be applied. If you're somebody who has multiple businesses or multiple domains, then not all the software has team or developer rights. So ScreenFlow, for example, does not. You're purchasing a license for each user, whereas both Screencast-O-Matic and Camtasia do have multi-license opportunities. So that's just something to consider as well.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Okay. The last two agenda items is I think we should talk about a content plan and think about a framework. And Mike, perhaps what you could do here is mention the potential steps that you see content having to move through as a framework or rather a process for content for your business. And maybe you can just share your Trello board again and just quickly talk through those steps. And then what we will do is we will, I think, will be to come up with topic ideas that and we can scope that we take content ideas and move them through these various steps so that in the next couple of weeks, we are starting to get content out into Mark's audience. And once we start to get people that engage with him after his first video, he can start to release content to those individual users. So yeah, take it away, Mark.
Okay, so I'm not sure, this was just my first step and I haven't really gone through the phases of developing content. But again, I just put together a board where we can, as a group or as individuals, just put in on the first column ideas that we think would be topical for my business, and then assign them to someone. In most instances, it's probably going to be me, but maybe I would engage help from either you guys or others and do some research on that particular topic. So, for example, if I was writing about going to teach a topic on, let's say, Evernote and how to use it to store stuff, I would say a topic on Evernote, and then I would go and do some research and shortcuts and how you can use it and put the rough stuff there and put keep those in the list until we put the sequence in which we want to actually release that content, which is when I'll put it into the up next one, because here you would start to actually draft the content in its ready format, and put it into some sort of logical sequence, the actual content for that topic, and then move it through writing it, and then get someone to edit it. And if there's graphics needed or special background stuff, we would put it in the next phase. And then schedule is when we would put a date on it and say it's scheduled for release this week, next week, or whenever it is. I'm not sure about ready to publish or whether it just goes straight to published. I'd like your input on that one. But I thought maybe when they're ready to publish, we could then go through and you could actually stack them in that particular list, where you could have weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're ready to publish, so you can get ahead of the game and then just move them across once you actually release them to the market. So those were the kind of steps that I saw, but and I put a little instruction card at the top of each list, but I'd like your input on that one to see if I'm on the right track.
I think that's a good place to start, Mike. It's more thought than we had applied so far to a content strategy for this business. What do you think? I think we'll also probably just get a sense of how those steps actually work as we start to go through the actual workflow of putting those ideas together.
Yeah, by the way, I like the card and I like the board and how it's laid out, and I think it's going to be a good way for us to sort and manage the content. Just as you were talking, I had a thought about the categorizing of content. So I think you are going to likely have users that are at different technological savviness. And one of the things that might be good to do is to categorize the different topics that you're sharing according to, is it for newbies, is it for people who are intermediate level, or is it this an advanced thing or something like that? Because you're going to have people entering this at different levels. Correct. And you know, you may have somebody who literally needs to be taught that how to switch on a computer, but that might be not engaging somebody who has a basic understanding of tech and needs something a little bit more.
It's great feedback.
Yeah, and also considering that in releasing the content plan, that it's done in a way that you are speaking to all levels. So we might not want to stick to only beginner topics at the beginning, and then we're not attracting people at upper levels or whatever it is.
I think that's a great point, Alex. And just a question on that. Do you think there's a case to say we need to develop some way of actually categorizing people when they sign up? There's maybe some sort of a questionnaire, or I don't want to make it sound too formal, like a test, but where you can get some indication as to what level they're coming in at, so you can kind of put sort of groups together and know what to target each group within the total category at, intermediate.
I think one of the things when we decide on what platforms we're going to use to share this, we can then look to see what are the opportunities to sort the content as it gets shared in a way that people can easily go to it according to their level. So if we are, say for example, we use Slack, we might have 3 channels, at each channel representing a different level, yes. And people subscribe to 1, 2, or all 3 channels depending on what they want. You know, if we decide to go with like a Facebook group, and maybe, you know, there's the new units function that's there, maybe we divide the units according to the levels. There's a lot of different ways that we can look at that. I think that if people choose up front to box into a single level, then they don't have the flexibility that if there is an item that is categorized different to how they saw themselves, then they can't access it. So, but someone who comes in and has a lot more exposure might opt to not want to have any beginner content, and that's fine.
Sure. Gareth, just another on that
Mark,
point.
just stop your screen share quickly there. At the moment, we can just see the Trello board that you still have there. So if you can just stop screen share, we can see you again. There we go. Cool. What is your question?
The question was, in terms of a platform, is the Facebook workplace chat and that sort of thing something one could use for my group of prospects, or do you think it's better to just put them into a Facebook closed group?
I think it's a discussion that we'll probably need to have. Alex and I have spent a bit of time talking about this for a couple of other projects, and I'll tell you what our initial thinking was, is that in the very early stages of engagement with an audience, the best place to engage with them is where they go naturally, meaning that when they open up an app in the morning, when they're sitting and having their coffee, most people will go to Facebook or similar. If we put them into a Facebook workplace app, we would really need to have a strong call to action in order to get them there. So I think without making this decision now, I feel that the first place to engage with this audience would be some space on Facebook, whether it's a Facebook group or something around that. In fact, I actually feel it feels more and more like it's going to be a Facebook group the more we talk about it. We probably need to just do a little bit more research, but I get a sense that based on the target audience that we have here, I think based on the new units function that you can have called social learning, which is in Facebook groups, it's the same structure we've got for the Ignite content, which you're going to see in the next couple of days, Mike. And it's another structure that I'm using for another project called Design Your Life that I'm busy with. I feel like it's a really nice place for people to come and engage with content while it's free, while you're building trust with them, while you put content out there, because they can come there. They will come there for other things anyway, to see what's happening with their kids. If someone sends them a message, they go to Facebook anyway. But I feel that, you know, when they want to learn something, they can engage there. But potentially when you want to sell them on a slightly more expensive or premium product, perhaps you migrate them at that stage to Facebook Workplace or to a Slack channel or to a members area on your website, like Alex is doing for her Phoenix program or something like that. So I really see that as stage 2, the paid section. Having said that, I have also done some research where Facebook is working quite hard on potentially developing and integrating payment gateways to allow some of their content and some of their group content to be a premium area. That basically takes a lot of the legwork out of having to create a separate channel and a separate place to migrate your users to in order to be able to charge for premium content. So could be a chance in the future. We're not sure what it's going to look like yet. But let's say, for example, you've got the Not Rocket Science free Facebook group. The first 10 courses are free, and from course 11 onwards is a subscription basis, and the payment and everything happens directly through Facebook, and the content owner or the group owner gets the money from the subscribers in the premium section. That's going to make everything quite a bit easier. And again, you still only have one place where your user needs to go in order to access that content. Again, if we just the strategy of Facebook it's to try and get more people to spend longer on Facebook. So the more they build these things, the easier it is for content owners like ourselves and the people watching this video to put their content onto Facebook and give them the tools that they need to build a community and a business that exists within the Facebook ecosystem. So maybe we start as a free Facebook group, and this maybe never even migrates anywhere outside of Facebook. Again, it's early stages to say, but that's really what I've been thinking in terms of our strategy for this.
Perfect. Okay, that answers my question. Thanks.
All right, guys, that's our agenda item for this week. Elle, you've got something to say there?
No, that's fine. Sounds like you're wrapping up. That's perfect.
Cool. Yeah. We are going to takeaways from this week is Alex is going to work on the logo, and we're going to create a Trello card where we can have discussions around logos and share that stuff. We are going to continue the discussion that we have around content plan. Maybe an action item I'll put out there is that the three of us maybe just have a discussion and put out 3 ideas of topics that Mike can start with, as call them first courses to do. And we put those 9 topics together and we can vote on which would be the best place to start. Mike's going to look at his intro video at some point over the next week or so. And we can also talk about the potential platforms that we're going to start with to launch this initial content once we've got it, because the platform that we have will form the basis of our call to action. This is what I'm doing, this is what we're about, and either list or my Facebook group or whatever that is. So I think that's probably going to be the strategy and the action items from this week. Anything that I've missed?
No, sounds good.
I think we've got it all.
Yeah.
Good for me.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I know I'm going to just cut that video at the last one there. I think we've done what we needed to do. Mike, how are you placed this week? I know you've got a crazy week coming up. You've got moving. Alex is disappearing tomorrow. How much time are we going to be able to give to this over the next week?
I'm going to try and fit in the topics that we've got there, and I'm going to try and, if you can send me the link for that My Story brand, so that I can get the framework within which to start, if not recording, at least scripting. I'd like to do that, and I'd like to do a one-on-one with you if you're not moving off to Mexico